Hey everybody, it's Phil Strazula from Select Software Reviews. I'm here with Kyle Connors, one of the founders of Candidate.fyi. And today we're going to be talking about the candidate experience and specific tactics that we can use to create an awesome candidate experience, one of the core parts of any talent acquisition strategy. Thanks a lot for being with us today. Do you mind giving a short background on yourself and kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Thanks for having me on the interview here. So as you mentioned, I'm a co-founder of Candidate.fyi. We started the company last year, and we're all about helping talent teams to level up their candidate experience, and specifically during the interview process.
That's awesome. And I guess just to sort of set the table, super basics, like what's your definition of candidate experience? Do you have any frameworks and how to think about it in terms of, different parts of it?
Yeah, so we look at candidate experience as really any touch point that you have with a candidate. So that could be from that initial application that they submit all the way up until they start at the company. There's specific areas that we're focusing on right now, but that's how we look at the candidate experience altogether, as every touch point with a candidate across that entire life cycle.
And how granular do you think people should be when thinking about this? Is it like literally, if I was going to map it, is it every single email, text message, et cetera? Or is it kind of like there's a beginning part of it, which is employer branding, there's a middle part, application, there's maybe an end part that's interview and offer?
Yeah, so great question. So, it really depends on where you stand as a company right now. So some companies have been, obsessing about candidate experience for quite some time. So they're all the way down to the specific detail of, okay, what does each email going out to the candidate, mean? How are we saying this to them? What is the language in the job description? So all of that matters, of course, but if you're not quite there yet, it's helpful to take a step back and then look at the different stages. So there's the application process, there's the interviewing process, there's the offer process, or I should say stage. Then there's what we call pre-boarding, and then finally there's the onboarding. So we look at those as distinct different stages inside the life cycle of a candidate experience.
Okay. And this might be a fairly obvious question and answer, but why is this important?
Yeah, great question. So just to take a step back and look at a kind of reason why Chris and I, my co-founder and actually brother, why we founded this company. When you look at how long someone spends at a company, on average, it's over 8,000 hours, right? So when you look at 2,000 plus working hours in a year, average time someone spends at a company is around 4 years. Then you look at how much time you actually spend interviewing at a company. It's nowhere in comparison, right? So how can we actually make that experience 10 times better for really each side, right? Not just the candidate, but also the employer too, right? Because they're making a big decision with determining if they should hire this person, and the candidate's making a huge decision if they should ultimately proceed if they get an offer. So how do we make this experience better for really each side? Because it just means so much, right? That 8,000 hours, right? Time is our most valuable asset. So how can we really enhance that time that we do spend together during the interviewing process? So now to answer your question, Phil, so why does it actually matter? So there's some soft things and some hard things we can talk about here. So first, it's a reflection of your brand and your company, right? These candidates, they may end up being employees of your company, or they may be customers of your company, right? So the interaction that they have with you as a candidate really matters, right? That's how you're actually rolling out what you represent as a company. And if that's a poor experience, that could really impact you. So that's some of the softer things that we can talk about here. But when we get into some of the hard stats, there's actually real data behind what a good candidate experience versus a bad candidate experience could actually do for a company or brand. So just to rattle off a couple right off the top of my head, that 35% of candidates, over 1/3 who have a negative experience actually go and share those negative experiences, on sites like Glassdoor and Facebook. So it really actually matters, and if you are not caring about that, then you're actually not having a solid funnel of top quality candidates who are coming in, right? Because nearly 80% of people who actually go and apply for your company, they go and look at sites like Glassdoor. So if you have poor reviews on there, they're not going to go and apply for you. So now you're really impacting the quality of talent that you're bringing through kind of the top of the funnel here, in your door if you're having these negative reviews. And there's, I mentioned the customer aspect as well. Someone who has a positive experience is nearly twice as likely to become a customer of your brand after the fact. So, it's actually now impacting the revenue of your business, right? When your candidates are customers as well. So, there, as I mentioned, there's some soft things and some real, hard data there that backs up why candidate experience actually does matter and should matter.
That's great. I remember there was a Virgin study maybe like 10 years ago where they found that they were losing like $10 million a year in revenue because their candidate experience was so bad that something like 10% of people were like, I'll never become a customer again, right? And there's that sort of downside, but the flip side is an opportunity where you can have a positive brand impact. And I would imagine that there's probably also correlations between candidate experience and the offer acceptance rate, people retention after 90, 365 days, etc. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you kind of look at the retention aspect, which is, I mean, it's, as I said in the beginning, this is the first touch point that a person has with your company, right? This is them getting to know you, and the old saying that first impressions matter, that holds so true here, right? And to your point, the retention, I mean, you look at turnover, and a fifth of that happens within the first 45 days of employment, right? So it really all starts from that candidate experience, and it touches so many different factors. We're really just getting a tip of the iceberg here.
Can you walk us through some specific ideas to build a great candidate experience?
Yeah, so starting from the top, really look at what do candidates want, right? So at the end of the day, what do they want? A transparent process, right, where they're really able to see what it looks like to work at your company, what your company represents, the culture of the company, what the team is. They want the transparency so they can really understand what it looks like to potentially work there. And they want open communication as far as where they stand in the process, what's coming up next, how they did. So, the two things they want is transparency and communication. When you look at where we stand today with most interviewing processes at companies, it's mostly this wall, right? I was thinking about this last night, actually. There's this huge, like invisible wall between the candidate and the company during the interview process, where essentially, the company's throwing over the wall, we're going to schedule you for an interview next Thursday, throw it over there, and maybe here's a PDF, right, for you to go check out some information on us. And the candidate says, okay, sounds good. Let me throw it back to you, right? And it's like this ping pong back and forth. What really need to actually do to create a great candidate experience is remove that wall and make it more of a immersive process where the candidate actually feels like they're coming into your company and almost becoming part of your company for the 2-3 weeks that they're engaging with you during this interview process. So kind of backing up to your question, Phil, as far as, how do you actually create a great candidate experience? Look at, how can you create more of an immersive experience for the candidate? How can you share information that they're looking for during that interview process? So what are you sharing today, right? Are you sharing any information about what the role entails? Are you sharing any information on the team that's part of the role, right? Because these are important for the candidate. This is what their day-to-day is going to consist of. So it's really taking an audit of what are you sharing today, and then moving more towards that immersive experience where you are being transparent as far as giving the candidate all sorts of information on what they would be looking for. And it's really too many to name in just this one interview here, but we have a whole list of all different pieces of criteria that candidates are looking for in this day and age.
That's great. Any other specific ideas you can share to help create a better candidate experience?
Yeah, so if you're not measuring what you're doing, then you really don't have any insight into how you're actually doing or how to improve. So we're big believers on sending out what we call them pulses, or it's really just at the end of the day getting feedback from your candidates. So we really strongly recommend that you're sending out surveys or feedback or these pulses throughout that whole experience, not just at the end, right? So a lot of companies just they'll send out a survey at the end of the interview process. And think about it from a candidate's standpoint. Okay, at that point, I've found out if I got rejected or I got the offer. Why am I going to then go fill out a survey at that point? It just doesn't really make much sense, right? I don't have any incentive to do it. Why would I want to go provide feedback at that point? But providing a feedback mechanism throughout the entire interview process where they can give you feedback along the way is an opportunity when they're highly engaged to actually get that feedback from them. And you can actually learn to see which parts of your interview process are doing well, and more importantly, which ones aren't doing so well, right? So maybe it's a particular interviewer, maybe it is a particular way of how the candidate was prepped or not prepped. But there's all sorts of learnings that you can have by having that feedback mechanism, and having that, as I said, throughout the interview process is so important. One of our customers just actually put this in where they're getting, they put this directly inside of their interview process, and they're getting 50+% response rates from their candidates because it's during that immersive process, which is previously they were getting 5%. And this is honest feedback they're actually getting from candidates. It's not just great, 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 great. They're actually getting that great feedback that they can use to improve their candidate experience, and areas where they need a bit of help.
What do you think is like the tiniest step forward that somebody can do if they're watching this and they want to improve their candidate experience?
Yeah, so the tiniest step is take one role, right? Take your most important role that you're trying to hire for today and that you haven't had the best success for hiring for, and then look at what you're actually sharing with the candidate. Like literally take an audit of what you're, pull out a doc, a Word doc, a Google doc, and write down literally bullet points of what you're sharing with the candidate. Then take a step back and say, as a candidate, is this enough of what I would want, right? Is this something I would be looking for? And the answer is probably no, right? So then prioritize which pieces you believe are most important, and then implement that top, most important one. Literally just implement that most important piece of information that is going to make your process more transparent for that one position. And I guarantee that will help. That will help a lot of candidates.
Awesome.
A lot of it's not rocket science, right? It's just doing things that we as people want, right? We've all been candidates before, but when we're on the other side, from the talent side, it's I've been there, right? I've hired, 50 plus people in my day. I've, interviewed, hundreds, if not thousands of people. It's tough when you're on that other side to always put yourself in the shoes of the candidate. But we've all been there. We've all been candidates. So just, remove yourself a bit, try to put yourself in their shoes and just think about some information, that they would like during this process.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. If people are, listening to this and they're like, hey, this is really interesting, have follow-up questions, want to get in touch, want to learn more about Candidate.fyi, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Can check out our website, Candidate.fyi. There's a form there, or feel free to, shoot me an email, Kyle@Candidate.fyi, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Really available anywhere here. So
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Really appreciate the time.
thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.